Welcome to eXp CultureCast, eXp Realty's official diversity, equity, and inclusion podcast. I'm your host, Cody Gilkison, the visionary leader behind eXp's DEI strategy. I believe that we all have a story to tell, and that's where this show really shines. We are a vibrant tapestry of diverse backgrounds and experiences, and that's our superpower. In each episode, we'll sit down with thought leaders, industry experts, and change makers who are driving meaningful conversations and actions in the realms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. From personal stories of triumph to deep dives into systemic challenges, CultureCast is your compass in navigating the complex landscape of DEI. This is CultureCast, the bi-weekly podcast about what makes us us. Hey everybody, and welcome. This is season 2, episode 10 of eXp CultureCast, and I'm thrilled to have my very good friend, my good Judy, Jill Liebernight, here with us today. Jill is a brand newly elected member of the eXp Women's Impact Network Board of Directors. She was one of the shining stars of the show at the inaugural WIN Summit just a couple of weeks ago. And Jill, do you want to give everybody a little bit of your background?
Hello. Oh my gosh. Well, first, I just want to say, Cody, I am super, super excited to be here with you because you were one of the people that I connected with early in this new chapter with EXP. And it's really meaningful to sort of be here today and look forward to our impactful, meaningful discussion. But I'm agent number 761. I've been with EXP since 2015. I have watched this freight train of entrepreneurial creativity for many years and love seeing how people play in this creative playground. I have a background in the arts. I'm a classically trained actor, singer, dancer, former high school dance and drama teacher. And just excited to unleash creativity and discuss these topics with you today.
So folks, you're here for a ride today because those that don't know my background, I have a bachelor's degree in musical theater, and we are art people. That's kind of, all of this malarkey and shenanigans you see in the background is my art. So we touch a vein here.
Oh Lordy, are we gonna, now I'm wondering, are we gonna break out into song and dance? I do always have props here in my room because I teach a lot in the cloud.
I've got the piano behind me, so Stay tuned.
Yeah.
So I want to give a brief programming note to folks. You may notice a shift going forward in the tone of eXp CultureCast, and we've decided to take a shift away from topics and a shift to people. So some of the feedback we get and some of the feedback that we see from you guys is you guys get more engaged when we let people come out and tell their stories more than when we hone in on a topic that might not resonate with everybody. So this is going to be the first of many episodes that are about the guest more than they're about the topic. And I hope you guys enjoy that. And please feel free to leave us comments and likes and all that sort of thing if you resonate with this. So I want to jump right in. Jill, you have such a diverse background from arts and education and now real estate. How have those experiences all over that world shaped your approach to real estate and public service?
Wow. I feel like I'm going to be 54. I'm a proud, mature woman turning 54 next month. And I feel like I'm going through this phase where I'm starting to see how everything is coming together and how everything is blending. When I got into real estate, 19 years ago, I found myself apologizing a lot for my arts background. It was initially hard to get clients. At the time when I got into real estate, I was performing on a PBS children's TV show. That became an Emmy award-winning TV show, but I was a children's performer. That was not how I imagined my theater trajectory was going to go. I was going to be on Broadway, Cody. But I learned a lot working in the children's production, but it wasn't necessarily a story box that led people to be super confident. Hey, I'm going to my character's name was Buttermilk Biscuit. Hey, I'm going to let Buttermilk Biscuit sell the largest investment of my life. So I had to go and really create my own sphere, my own client base. And I had been teaching drama and dance for years. And you know, after I initially didn't quite sit well with the classic lead generation activities that were being encouraged of new agents, door knocking, cold calling, lots of cold calling, lots of phone dialing. I decided, what do I do well? I'm a teacher. Like, even though I'm not teaching high school anymore, like, I'm a teacher at the core. That is who I am.
Mm,
And so I decided to teach my community, and that's when I started to really start to better understand the role that public service had been playing in my soul and spirit, because my grandfather was a long-serving uh, uh, public servant in Pennsylvania, where I grew up. Um, and I had been running away from that in the arts, but I felt really drawn to that as a teacher and then as a business, developer. And I started to realize that um, these things that I was embarrassed of in the business world were some of my greatest assets.
mm,
And then I started unleashing that. And when I really, took a leap was in 2010. My husband's a playwright, filmmaker, also a theater person. And, YouTube was new on the scene. And everyone, some agents were starting to step into video production for real estate. And I was an early adopter of video for real estate. And at first I had to convince, I was at another brokerage at the time. And I had to convince them. They were, I was working with production coaches, and they were, I was telling them that I was off making these videos and I was getting clients from them. And they initially didn't want to classify that as lead generation time. But my business during this year that I was doing video production in a way that was very me, that's when I created the Agent Jill persona, which
mm,
was a little bit, sillier and a little bit more authentic, a lot more authentic. I was getting a real powerful response from my community, and that was translating into business. And my business grew 248%
Woo.
that year. And all of a sudden, it just felt like it was just a huge shift into a new gear of like, oh, I can be me.
Mm,
And I don't have to be, you know, type of realtor persona that sometimes I felt like I had seen on TV and movies, that I felt like I had to be in
mm,
the world. And once I created and, accepted my Agent Jill persona, I don't mean to talk about her like a character that is not me, but at the time I really kind of stepped into, this is me and I'm a little bit different and let's have fun doing this.
yeah.
So,
And I
this
can relate to that. I can relate to that big time. It was for me. I cut my teeth and did most of my career in the banking sector, which is super super conservative. And I lost out on a lot of opportunities based on being too extra, or based on
Mm,
being too emotional, or based on being too close to your employees, as they put it, which I think is a real compliment for a manager who is empathetic to their employees, right? But all of those things were seen as a negative. So finding my footing at EXP, where I was using a lot of the skills that I had gained as a volunteer doing DEI stuff, never as a paid job. I
mhm,
stepped into this role with the thought still in my head that I needed to be that sort of conservative voice that spoke as a like a professional in the banking industry, right? And then when people started responding differently when I would go off script on my DEI trainings, and then the little quip about my personal life would be the thing that people remembered, I was like, wait a minute, I can just be myself.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, it's sort of a character, but I consider the version of Cody that's here at EXP like Cody Unleashed, right? Like, I'm not holding back from anything. I'm an open book. I fully am my 100% my authentic self here. Never been an option for me in my career, but it's why I have thrived at EXP. So I really can relate to your story
Oh
there.
my gosh, you've just thrown out so many important words, too much or emotional or relate, how you related to people. And certainly what you said last about you feel like you're finally able to be your full authentic self. I was just interviewing, I don't know if you remember at the WIN Summit here in Austin when we launched our Women's Impact Network. We had a video welcome from Celia Israel, who is a former
Mhm.
state representative
God, I
and
love
also
her.
an EXP agent here.
Mhm.
And when I was interviewing her and capturing that welcome video, we were also interviewing her for another project, and she was talking about how when she was able to come to her work both as a public servant and as a realtor, as her full authentic self, um, that's when the game, changed for her. And that was a really powerful story. And I feel like, I have been involved in diversity work for years, from when I was a school teacher and here in my leadership journey in Austin and in the real estate industry. And man, I just feel like I am continuing to sort of evolve my thinking in how diversity is more powerful than we realize. And I think it's become so much a part of our vernacular and our, modern language. Certainly it's become divisive, but man, the idea of inclusivity and specifically inclusivity
Mhm.
uh, can make such a profound difference in an organization and a team and a business and an individual's life when they feel like they can come authentically to the table and contribute their very best full self, talent, voice, whatever you call it.
Right.
Um, so I think, I mean, those that we could go off on a whole nother podcast on
That's a whole episode,
emotions,
right? Yeah.
emotions and being too much. And I'm still, here's the reality. I am still battling all of this. I am my worst critic. Um, Most of my close friends and family know. And that's something that I'm really passionate about with the Women's Impact Network is sort of the ingrained narratives and stories um, of lesser worth, lesser value that most women, certainly mature women, live with. I'm not saying that we're still not in a world where we give stories and messages to young girls. We do. I'm just seeing it kind of at a super crazy pitch resonance with specifically middle-aged women. Um, so I'm really hoping, that's one aspect of the Women's Impact Network that I'm hoping that we're able to raise some awareness. Because I think that I'm seeing that still play out. And, last week was a tough week, with the news of Anita Mui and the murder that took place in Canada of, one of our beloved, fellow real estate colleagues. I think after Beverly Carter, that event that happened, gosh, years ago. I mean, her son has been traveling around teaching safety awareness for a realtor safety awareness for years now.
Right.
Years.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's, little backstage hint. We're actually looking at him for a future episode of CultureCast. We might be able to get him. So that's the Beverly Carter story is really impactful. If folks aren't aware, Beverly Carter was a real estate agent who was murdered during a showing. Is that right?
yeah. Yep.
And it is something that her son has championed is realtor safety, particularly for women, right? It's a as a female realtor, you're putting yourself in a spot where you are alone with strangers often, right?
Mhm.
And that's something we could dig into. Let's dig into just a bit here because we're in September. It is Realtor Safety Month. This is like a critical time to raise awareness.
Yeah.
How would you, Jill, define safety in the real estate profession?
Well, the more traditional framework of is physical safety.
Mm,
Um, but what I have become more aware of is psychological, emotional, and spiritual safety that
mm,
sometimes is not a part of boardrooms and communities and networks. So I would define it as spaces that are physically and emotionally safe spaces for all.
right,
And that definition goes wide and deep, because I have, recently become a member of the disability community. Although mine's a little bit more of an invisible disability. I spent some time with the disabled community this summer at a retreat. And I will tell you, spending 1 week with persons in wheelchairs and assisted devices, also people with neurodivergent disabilities and more classic disabilities like the deaf community and the blind community. um Not all spaces are safe for them to access, so accessibility, that's another lens of the inclusivity.
mm,
Are all spaces safe for people to step into?
mm,
But I certainly am seeing uh more pervasive, mentally unsafe spaces
mm,
where, and this is not just women, but the again, the wide diverse lens of all persons. As we grow to be a more uh, out out there and involved global community, people are coming in contact with and engaging in uh, working with more diverse people that have more diverse backgrounds and life experiences that
right,
people just haven't been around. And old ways, old language, old definitions and ways that we describe things continues to come into play. So,
right.
for me right now, I'll be honest, personally, it's the mental and psychological safety that's more of an issue as I grow in leadership.
It's such a big deal, and setting those boundaries and all that for yourself so that you protect your mental health is so important. It's so important. And it's something as a realtor that can be that can fall to the wayside. You hear this a lot from our realtor friends that they experience burnout at a very, very high level, and protecting your mental health is so very, very important, and something that Jessica Nieto taught me a long time ago is, there are those clients that no matter the dollar value, it is not worth your sanity to work with, right? You choose
Yeah.
your clients to protect your sanity, and that was something that made a major impact on her career
Hmm.
as she grew her business to the behemoth that it is now, right? Was being selective about who she works with, and not everybody is worthy of your time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I told you I'd be nothing but, raw and real today. But, the harsh reality is that a lot of women have experienced some form of sexual or, discriminatory harassment, assaults, or violence in their past.
Yeah. The
And
numbers are really
so,
staggering on that. Yeah.
yeah. So what is interesting to once your eyes are open to it, starting to see how women are having triggering responses in collaborative spaces when when they are not treated in a similar fashion, or when they come come across or have to experience behavior that triggers old memories
Right.
or old behavior. So
Mhm.
it's complex. So how do we? It requires some complex conversations, training, education. I am so appreciative that EXP has provided agents with access, well, A, to Betsy Myers,
Mhm.
like raising my awareness and understanding of action steps that I can take, but
Yeah.
also the Catalyst program that she introduced us to, so that they have research and data and training and programs that we now have access to. I mean, I don't know of any other organization, certainly in the real estate industry space or profession, that has this kind of resources for us.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and I think to anybody that's listening to this and saying, "Oh, she's providing some data and some numbers, how boring." I would challenge you to go look at those numbers and come back to me, right? They
Yeah.
truly are eye-opening, right? They really,
Yeah.
really, really are. And some of the stuff that we learned at the WIN conference about, how women make the majority of the financial decisions in our country, and, some of those other, it's just stuff that you never thought about, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
another lens that I think we're going to have, going back to your question of what, how do you define safety? I This is a personal opinion, um, that is based in some facts and conversations. But a couple weeks ago here in Austin, we had our second annual diversity summit,
Mm,
and we had the honor of hosting Alexia Smokler, who is the director of fair housing programming and advocacy at the National Association of Realtors,
mm,
and spending 24 hours with her and listening to her, in this post settlement world, there is a lot of conversation about the need for us to have consistent systems and practices in our real estate to ensure that everything that we do with buyers and sellers are consistent, so that there is not a perception on the other end, that a client or a customer may feel as though you are treating them different than somebody else. So that
mm,
there may be a perceived fair housing implication. And I think, you know, I include that in the lens when I am now daydreaming. I use the word daydreaming a lot. I'm, cheerleading, daydreaming, come back, the art of daydreaming to come back to modern societies. So when I am daydreaming right now about what this post settlement world looks like for me,
mm,
it is ensuring that I am daydreaming out systems and practices and language and behavior that are 100. I mean, they've always needed to be consistent, but I just have a really special lens so that I just think that there could be more risk or vulnerability
mm,
for a perception of a fair housing violation, when I know that that is not most people's intention. But we're getting used to, we're getting new sea legs and getting used to new systems and procedures, and that might lead professionals to be trying on, trial and error.
yeah,
But really working towards consistency is another way that we can create safe spaces for our clients.
mhm,
But also, I thought, Cody, this is how I can approach safe space for me. Because
mhm,
here, I'm gonna talk you through, again, Jill being raw and real. I'm gonna talk you through this stupid stuff that I sometimes will do, and the inner monologues that are happening. And I would, love for other agents to, when you listen to this, reach out to me, let me know, do you kind of go through this language or inner monologuing yourself? We get calls from people, clients that we haven't met yet, prospective clients that are wanting to go look at a house. They have a compelling story. They're only in town for a short period of time, or they may even be a referral or found a referral or somehow connected to a client or a referral of yours. And we as realtors really want to be seen, and many of us are deeply committed to being community servants. And we don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to make life difficult for them. So we'll rearrange our schedules, even if there's, you're entertaining or you're on vacation or you're with your family. We'll rearrange our schedule and get out to see somebody. And we'll say things like, oh, I need your driver's license, and oh, I need this. And we'll even get it, maybe a driver's license with no real knowledge of, is it legit? Is it the person that I'm going to meet? And we go there and we're maybe even experiencing some red flags as we get to the house. But we keep telling ourselves different stories. Oh, just show in the house, just open the door, just do this thing. This is how we make, we support our families, or I don't want so-and-so to think that I'm being rude, or I am not being respectful. And then we're there and we're so busy answering questions and doing stuff that we turn our backs to doors. We turn our backs to people. We are not aware of the exit strategies. We're not like, we walk into so many situations because of narratives that we have accepted, that society, I have this like write your own story in my office at all times, because there are so many stories that are placed on us that we haven't even taken the time to determine, is that a story that I want to live in?
Yeah.
Is that really the story I want to be a part of? Is that really my story? Is that really who I am? Who am I? So I just
That's
think
really interesting. I had a therapist once that always told me, this dichotomy of, are you an actor or are you the writer in your story? And that speaks really truly to that. There was a time in my life when it felt like life was happening to me and it wasn't me directing what was happening in my life. That resonates with me very much.
And I'm not, by no means am I saying that women suffer more from taking on society narratives or characters, or expectations. But I do feel like I see women, ruminate heavily over what people think and people pleasing, and, like going to the ends of the earth to make something happen for someone else, and putting themselves last. I don't know if that's just a genetic behavior thing, or how we have been raised and trained to behave or be. I just couldn't help, when I started thinking this through with the fair housing stuff and creating consistent client intake and service systems, if this could be a different pathway for me to battle this vulnerability that I think I continue to put myself in, with safety. I mean, Beverly Carter, is this 2017? I don't remember, but this was a while ago. So, I can't say that I have done vastly different things as a realtor, from Beverly Carter to Anita, the recent tragedy. And that disappoints me. And I want to work on this, and I want to be better at this. And I want to be a better leader. I want to be better in rooms where people, I won't just say men, people are behaving inappropriately. And I want to get better at recognizing when poor behavior is in front of me. And I want to get better at immediately speaking up about it. Even if that's with the hands, stop. I would like for you to no longer use that language around me. And I'm going to remove myself from this situation. And in the future, I no longer want to be XYZ or talk to in this way.
I love that.
That's scary.
That's such power, though. That's such power, Jill. I wish every woman at EXP and every woman in real estate and every woman in the workplace could really own what you just said
But you
about.
know what, Cody? I didn't do it in a particular room, a power position, and I didn't do it, and it took me a year and a half to even become fully aware of what was happening to me,
Mm,
because I was looking at everyone else. Well, the president isn't doing anything, and this person isn't doing anything, and, oh, everyone's telling me this, that, and I'm new, and I need to just, um, make nice and play along, and I
right.
didn't stand up, and that day when I woke up and realized,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I was disappointed in myself,
Yeah.
terribly disappointed in myself. How could I be a 53-year-old woman and not know that something was wrong?
Right. Yeah.
That's There's something wrong in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
that's
something that I go through in the mirror with myself all of the time. And it's something that I constantly put on a loop in my head. If not me, then who? Right?
oh,
When you see something like that, that's why it's so, so important. Because I think of myself as a very strong, self-determined person who has a very thick skin. But what if this behavior that's happening in front of me happens to the next person that doesn't have that? Right? Um, what if the behavior continues to go unchecked? And what happens when behavior goes unchecked? It gets worse. Insidious behavior like sexism and talking to a woman in a certain way, right? Or,
mhm,
in my case, talking to a gay person in a certain way, right? If you continue to let that go unchecked, that person believes it's okay. They believe that everyone
mhm.
accepts it. There becomes a confirmation bias that this is acceptable, and so it escalates, and
Well,
then
I'm
it
writing
becomes
that
this
down,
sort of
confirmation bias. That was powerful, um, powerful words. Uh, but with that, yes, and I have a tendency to think that and get to a point where I'm like, "Yes, I'm gonna speak up." And
right.
then the reality of retribution starts
Mhm.
coming in, and I'm like, "Oh, do I wanna waste the energy on this? Is this what I wanna get sucked into? And w what might happen to me and my family?" And this is where I am in the working stages of understanding my rights. I
Right.
am better understanding ADA laws and rights. I am taking time and better understanding, you know, employee handbooks and volunteer handbooks and code of conduct and, what is the pathway at human resource level, when to speak out, how to speak out. And this is not about, by no means am I wanting to focus on catching people and um, you know, you know, like,
Labeling people and that.
labeling
Yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah. And
I'm
that's a tough thing that we have to get over as a society. Part of this is, I mean, look at this. You're our holistic realtor. We're going to look at this from a holistic level, right? That from outside, we also have to recognize that there are a series of factors that led to this person believing that that sort of behavior was okay.
Mhm.
And also, you have to think about how does someone react if the way that you confront them is to say, you are a sexist, you are any kind of an
Mhm.
ist, you are a homophobe, you are
Mhm.
the ists and the isms are
Walls come up.
those are actions and not personality traits, right?
Yeah.
That's something that we have to recognize. If you see somebody doing something that to you feels sexist, to you feels misogynistic, that does not mean that that person is a sexist, is a misogynist. It means they took an action which they are capable as full human beings of retracting and growing from, right?
Absolutely. This is why,
Everyone
the
is.
teacher in me, education is so important, and representation,
Hmm.
ensuring that all of our collaborative spaces truly are accessible and accessible to all people, because the more diverse, and not just, sometimes we have a tendency to look at diversity as a color lens. I am talking diversity of thought, diversity of experiences and backgrounds. Um, when you pack a room with different life experiences, that's when I have seen people, and you set up a room to really get to know each other. That's why I really appreciated the Win Summit.
That's
Um,
exactly what I was thinking. That's exactly the kind of room you're describing right now.
we really set up time. We knew going in that we wanted to have deep, meaningful, impactful conversations. And that's exactly what took place. We carved out time for that. And, we're all in every aspect of our world, we're fast paced and we like to consume things, you know, at a quick pace. And the real estate industry loves, you know, very much like theater, faster, louder, faster, funnier.
That's
That's
it.
what we're also always trained in the theater, in certainly in musicals. When the
Yep.
show's not going well, just say it louder,
Yeah,
louder,
tell it to the
faster,
back of the
funnier.
room. Yep.
Um, in real estate, we're very focused on bigger, faster, like grow it faster, build it bigger, win the awards, and pump that music in underneath. But that doesn't really get a room sometimes to really talk to each other and do like this book that I was sharing with you, How to Know a Person,
Mm,
the art of seeing others deeply and being deeply seen. It's an
mm,
extraordinary book by David Brooks, and he interviews and talks about the powerful experience that he had meeting actors. He was on some panel um, that included Anne Hathaway and some other actors, and he was fascinated with how the actors behaved. And he was like, I want to learn more about this. Look at them. They're expressing themselves. They're singing. They're emoting emotions. That
mm,
scary, scary thing, emotions. Um, and and I have come to realize that my decades of actor training has brought me to a place where it is an intuitive way of being. I don't
mhm,
know how. I really don't know how to be in spaces anymore without um this intuitive, you know, action reaction exchange. In
mhm,
theater, it's all about what's your action, and then there's a reaction, and then you react to that. There's a constant give and take. So um I don't know how not to be vulnerable in spaces. And I am used to getting that all the time of like, oh, Jill, here comes the drama queen. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of expression. And I beat myself up about that for years. But now I know that it is my secret weapon. I know how to
mhm,
go into rooms and talk real with people. Um, and I have the courage and the skills, the emotional skills to talk about really sensitive things. Not everyone would want to talk about sexual assault. Well, I've done 17,000 monologues about it. So
yeah,
done. Know how to do that.
yeah.
Know how to recreate it in the fake world. I know how to do it in real life. Anyway, I didn't mean to get going off on another subject.
It's completely all good. I told you at the outset of this that these are conversations and the questions are a skeleton, and we'll jump around and we'll figure out where we land. And as long as the conversation is meaningful and I think somebody can get something out of it, we're just going to keep trucking along. And listen, I think this
Woo!
conversation has been so good, so good.
So
So I want to.
I mean, do you see your your skills that you obtained over the years in uh creative expression? Do you see it making an impact in
Absolutely.
collaborative spaces and rooms?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I see I went to theater school with the express desire to become a theater teacher. So I leaned really heavily on the education aspect and how to get a point across, and how to, you know, emotional intelligence was a big deal of what I learned at college
Mhm.
at that time, and that is something that stuck with me to this day. Is how to build a bridge with someone, right? Essentially, that's a really high level, boiled down way to say I'm using core pieces
Mm.
of my theater training, um, without using the the end goal of what those pieces were meant to build, which was a convincing actor, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I realized pretty quickly in college that like I, was not meant to be an actor. It's not my gig. I'm not somebody that's capable of memorizing a ton of lines. I only ever got one lead role in the entirety of college, and it's mainly because I can sing, not because of anything to do with my acting chops.
Well,
I'm
I
not.
can't wait to hear your voice. We'll have to work on a song together. I always like working on songs with people.
Let's do it.
Um,
That's something that at the Win Summit, we had a karaoke crew that went out, and let me tell
I
you,
know
there
I
are some
missed that.
secret superstars at karaoke
I
at
have
this
no doubt. I have no doubt.
time.
Um, well, I mean, I continue to be fascinated with uh human beings' reaction to emotion.
Mm,
They people have an aversion to tears and want tears to stop. Um, People want to fix tears.
wow.
Um, but
Yeah,
you
I went through a whole roller coaster of emotions at the Win Summit because we changed tables a lot, right? With the people sitting at our table. And at every one of the three different configurations of table, someone cried at my table. And at the first one, it was me. And I was like looking around like I never the roller coaster of emotions that went through my head started with I can't believe I'm taking up space at a women's summit crying about my mom. And then number two was I always thought I was really emotionally vulnerable, and I'm actually shocked that I'm crying in front of people right now. Which is like I didn't see that coming. I thought like, oh, this is the kind of thing that I would be okay with, but here I am doing it, and I'm genuinely shocked that this is happening to me.
wow.
Yeah,
See, those
and
are narratives. Those are narratives that interrupt our authentic ability to show up 100% who we are. That's sometimes why I feel like I wasn't successful as an actress, as I was constantly like directing myself in my head. I couldn't
mm,
shut up while I was on the stage. Oh, you missed that beat. You missed that. I was,
yeah, yeah.
a properly method trained actress. Um, I think so many of us have a lot of noise in our head.
Mm.
And I, I, I want us to get better helping each other quiet that noise in our head.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And it's funny, the topic that we were talking about at the time when all of this went happened to me was we were talking on at the table of all of those pervasive thoughts in your head that tell you you can't or you shouldn't or you whatever. Who put those thoughts there? And I started realizing like, oh, I know exactly where these came from, and I still
yeah,
give that
there's
person the
somebody else's
space.
story.
It's somebody else has written part of my story, and I don't even realize that she's in there pulling the strings, right? Like I didn't even know that was happening to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it's very, very interesting. I also recognized in myself that while I consider myself someone who's very emotionally vulnerable, the prospect of doing it in front of a table full of people that I unequivocally look up to, um, that really scared me, right? So
Wow.
that's something that I never really thought about. Like, am I only okay being emotionally vulnerable with people who I don't worry about their opinion of me?
Yeah.
Because that's not fully emotionally vulnerable. That's not
Yeah, and we
right.
even had our male CEO, choke up a little bit, talking about his wife and his daughter and being a girl dad, and how much they inspire him to be the best version of himself. So like I think this is when I think about the Women's Impact Network, I think about the work that we're doing as being
Mm,
just as impactful for men. I don't want my son to continue to live in a world that places any sort of dampening energy on him when he has a desire to express his full emotional self.
right.
And that's another unhealthy definition of this structure that we are living under a little bit, that isn't healthy. Because I need all persons at the table to have empathy.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, at the Win Summit, Betsy said something that stuck with me. It's probably the thing that stuck with me the most. She said the number one skill of an effective leader is empathy. And that's something that you do so well. And that's one of the reasons I have zero doubt about you being successful in your role at Win. Can you tell us about like a time when you saw a leader flexing their sort of empathy muscle and how it impacted your impression of them?
Well, I tell this story often. This is an EXP story, but I remember my first week at EXP. Uh, the virtual world was much different than it is today.
Mhm.
And for those of us who were early adopters of EXP, the virtual world was very different. It was not intuitive, certainly to an actor, teacher, a person that thrives on a stage.
Right.
But I was unhappy about something, how my onboarding was going, and I went in to talk to then President Jason Gessing, and we were in our little like EXP bubble, and Glenn Sanford just strolled up and hopped into the bubble.
Mm.
And, I had me, I share opinions, and I had a thought about, like I believed very much in my clients should have free access to information, and they should not have to check in online and sign up and do stuff. And I was very opinionated about it, and I was ready to go to battle. And Glenn met um, that energy with empathy
Mm.
and curiosity. It's like, oh, he met it with intellectual curiosity, and that's where I think his empathy was able to open up and flourish, is because he took time to be intellectually curious about, oh, well, this is a different, okay, I that makes sense. I want you as an agent to have your own structure of how your clients or a new client might want to engage with you online.
Mm.
um and and he immediately was like, how would you want to structure this? Share your ideas, and maybe you could be a part of helping us adjust this. So that was my first week where I was meeting the cultural foundation to me of EXP, which is, people come from contribution.
Mm.
Um, they have set up an entrepreneurial playground where, yeah, sure, we've got rules and regs. All brokerages have to.
Mm.
We all have to, operate by state regulations and national laws. But culturally, my leader didn't meet my energy with defense.
Mm.
It was immediately with understanding, or a curiosity to understand, and a curiosity to arm me with the power to be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
And what I continued to see from Glenn was a willingness to jump in at any difficult conversation that was happening,
Mhm.
and just, talk in the car, talk, while walking down the street. Um, that is a version of empathy to me, is that he is just able to talk with us.
Yeah.
And, that's just one that comes to mind.
Yeah. And
Um,
you know, I've got a couple of good examples on this one too that I always go to. And that's, you know, when I started at EXP, I took a entry level position down in a transaction audit team, right? And immediately I noticed some things about our DEI strategy that I thought maybe weren't working so well. And this is where I relate to you so much. I went into the people team and and I was like, "Who's at the top? How do I talk to? We need to fix this. This isn't acceptable." And I went in with my battle armor on, right? And there was a little bit of pushback, But it wasn't long before Michael Valdez entered the chat in a big way. And Michael said, maybe there's something there. Maybe we should have a more robust DEI program. We didn't have a DEI team at the time. And then by the grace of whatever goodness exists in the universe, 3 women came into my life. And that's Jessica Nieto and Fee Gentry and Jen Van Berkeley. And those 3 women said, I like what you're saying. Let's make you presentable enough. Let's give you the tools in your tool belt so that when they start this DEI program, they don't have any other choice but to just let you fix it.
Yes. But isn't that, we share a very similar story. Like you with One EXP, me with the Women's Impact Network. And I want us really to remember this, Cody. And I think we will. I know we will. Because we're going to help each other remember this, that we listen to our big wisdom. We listen to our inner voice, and we knew something was important to talk about. Was the messaging completely polished at the time? Did we fully comprehend what we needed to do at the time? No.
Yeah.
But we spoke up. And I think our background and our training gave us some extra support to have the confidence to do that.
Yeah.
And that our bodies know when something is big enough that we need to respond to it. I've gotten to a point with my healing work and my mindfulness work that I know when my body is telling me, you should stand, you should walk, you should not eat, you should eat, like all the things. And, responding to emotional triggers is another one of those. My body is giving me clear signs. And I knew I needed to speak up at the end of last year. And if it wasn't important, I likely just would have fussed and moaned about it behind the scenes. But I'm really proud that I spoke up, and it even took me several weeks to even, work up the ladder and go to Glenn and other folks that I felt I needed to express. And it wasn't, I was raw with them as well. Because, this past year in terms of women's advocacy, or just a woman's journey, certainly as a professional realtor, I felt like last year was I've been describing it for me personally as a George Floyd moment. I feel like there have been events that just felt like we cannot continue to not address this.
Right. We can't go back from here. We got to go forward.
We've got to go forward. And I am so proud and I don't want to say grateful. I don't want to come and be like, groveling. I'm so grateful that the boys, gave us this thing. But to some degree, this is where strategic alliances are really important. What Betsy has been teaching us. It does take collaboration. This can't just be women mad. This takes, groups working collaboratively together. And as I kicked off the WIN event, truly at the single cell level, we are designed, our body's nature, we are designed to work in community. We thrive in cooperation and collaboration. So we got to figure out ways for all sorts of people to be in a room and collaborate and not lead anyone to feel like their voice isn't valued or triggered in any sort of way, so that they're not able to fully contribute to the collaborative space.
Exactly that. And, something that I think I pat myself on the back a little bit here I was part of the selection committee for the WIN board of directors, that it is so good as far as representation. The cross section of humanity, from levels of experience, from upbringing and background, from cultural diversity to, I mean, thought diversity, women that come from a lot of different thought processes. This is a board of directors that is solid. And when we went into this, I'll be honest with you, they said 15 people. I was like, that's a lot for a board of directors. I've been on a lot of boards of directors. 15 is a lot. But when we were narrowing that board down, it was like, how am I ever going to only pick 15? Right?
So we had almost 300 applicants, correct?
350. Yeah.
350. So, I mean, you have a perspective in this journey,
Yeah.
you know, being on the ground floor of the only diversity initiative of its kind in real estate.
Mhm.
What do you think that's saying about the need in women's advocacy? I mean, sometimes we struggle. Like, what's the doggone word that we use?
Yeah.
We
No,
don't like
no, that's
empowerment. We used impact, but like for women in real estate, like, how did that feel? Did you feel like there was a cry for help? Do you feel
I,
like there are
I don't feel that it was a cry for help. I will tell you what I felt was, this is hitting a nerve. We said,
oh,
do we need this thing? And women said, hell yes, we need this thing. And not only that, here is my list of ideas for how we can do this. And those ideas were so like profound that we were like, how do we select the 15 best sets of ideas? It was like an impossible, it was like a Sophie's choice. But I will tell you, the overwhelming feeling that I had was, number one, abject horror that maybe I'd make the wrong choice, right? That maybe somebody whose voice should have been heard didn't make it this year. But then on the flip side of that, putting on my Jessica Nieto branded positivity hat, I look at the other side of that, which is, we are set with women who can lead this movement for decades to come.
and
If
we
we
and
gained
because
not
we're
one
having
more new female realtor, we would still be set, right?
and because you are willing, as you know, sort of the director of the One EXP program, to have these really impactful, meaningful, deeper conversations.
Yeah.
I think as one of your board directors, uh, I know I'm already inspired to find as many different ways to empower and
Mhm.
get women up working so that we don't even really recognize who's a board director, because everyone is contributing in a meaningful,
There's going to be so
purposeful
many
way.
opportunities for all these committees and pieces that, the board is not the end. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, looking through all of those, a lot of the people on the selection committee, we've had some leadership changes here at EXP. So some of the people there don't know the women of EXP like I know the women of EXP. So being there and advocating for these women who are so much more than was written on that application page, and I know that because I know them, right?
Mhm.
Like, I didn't need to read your application. I know exactly who you are, Jill. So I
Mhm.
would have advocated for you if you would have turned in a blank application, right? But the thing is, like, I thought during that process, holy crap, there's a lot of women who've impacted me at this company. That
Hmm.
that was, huh. And then I got to the Win Summit, and I'm looking around and I'm like,
My God, there's so many more.
I know 80% of the women in this room. That's insane. That is insane how many women have made an impact on me personally, right? So expand that out to the rest of the males at the company, or the rest of the people at this company, period. And the impact that women have made on this company is indelible. It is insane. And
And
that is
yet
why I think,
we all like a takeaway for me, one of the many takeaways
yeah,
was how many of us all continue to struggle with a sense of worth and value in any space.
that's it.
And that's where I think we can really help each other,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
retrain and rewire some thinking so that, that those narratives can be quieted. And I don't know
That's
if
it exactly.
quieting is I just, I remember journaling the day after. I was still at the hotel and I was like, I think I'm going to have to theater my way out of, my imposter syndrome. And I know imposter syndrome is such an overused phrase right now. And
But it's
I
so
didn't
real. It's
necessarily
so real,
feel
Jill.
like
Yeah.
that captured all of it, but it was just that I fundamentally was never enough. There was an unsatiable, there was no way that I could ever satisfy or achieve enough to get to a place where I feel like I keep wanting to try to get to, and that
Yeah.
I always feel like I come short. Maybe it's because I am short. No,
No. And
but
listen, I want to leave you with this. I rarely, have these moments where I'm thinking something at one of these tables that sticks with me. I normally get my knowledge and my quotes from other people, but this one came from me. I told Eden Jeffrey. Eden was going through something, and she was talking about her imposter syndrome, right? And to me, looking at Eden, it is ludicrous that she should experience imposter syndrome. She's one of the most accomplished and competent leaders I've ever met in my life. And she is in her early 20s,
I
right? She
know.
has such a freaking future ahead of her. And then I started playing that further out in my head. When I am questioning myself, I think, what does Jessica think of me in this situation? What advice would she give me? It's kind of that WWJD moment that people used to have. But
Yeah.
then I have in my head, wait a minute, it's not just Jessica. What about what Eden thinks of me? What about what Jill thinks of me? What
Yeah.
about, and then I start listing off all of the powerful women that I know and love that have touched me so much. And I continued naming names until I ran out of fingers and toes a few times. And I was like, this is a whole room worth of people who have the power to pour into me something without them doing anything, right? All I've got to think is me and my reaction to this scenario and me telling myself I'm not good enough, not well enough.
Mhm.
How would Jill react if I called her and told her what I was going through right now? She would tell me, of course, you're competent and capable enough to get through it. So
And
do it.
I will include that in our safety conversation, because the way I talk to myself, I wouldn't allow another human being to speak to myself, and I would have to do that thing that I described earlier. I'm gonna have to ask you to stop using that language around,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
as we walk into September, which is Realtor Safety Month, like, I wish everyone to raise awareness about your physical safety, your mental safety as it relates to the rooms that you're in and the people that you collaborate with, and how uh, keep yourself safe in
That's
how
it.
you treat yourself.
And remember, at EXP, if you have found your tribe in the way that we encourage you to do on this podcast, there are people that will always believe in you. There are
Always.
always those people, right? And if you ever have a moment where you're like, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, just think, what would Cody tell me to do? What would Jill?
No, and I think Cody and Jill really like getting to know people's stories. So I also want to say, if you aren't connected, if you find yourself isolated or not connected, two people here that would love to know your story.
And I would love to find those connections for you. If it's not me, ooh, do I have a roster?
Yeah,
I have a
yeah.
Rolodex of love. If anybody knows what a Rolodex is in 2024,
So
but I've
don't
got a group
isolate.
I can plug you into. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't isolate.
that's the realtor's biggest enemy is isolation. Don't isolate yourself. I teach that all the time. Find a community to collaborate with.
That's exactly it. Jill, this has been such a good conversation. We could keep going forever. Maybe we'll have a part two at some point.
Love it.
I just want to listen. Talking about that emotional intelligence piece, I walked up to Leo Pareja. I always do this thing where I stand in line to shake the hand of the people who are in rooms that I don't normally get to be in. And I said, "Hi, Leo, I'm Cody." And he goes, "I know who you are. I like your podcast." And I was like, excuse me? That empathy piece that we were talking about, that is, he has no idea what that did for me. And let me tell you what I leveraged it into. I say this at the close of this podcast to let you know that this is season 2, episode 10. On season 2, episode 11, our guest will be Liho Pareja.
Love it. And by the end of the year, I say by episode 20 or 30, Jill and Cody are going to have their song to perform.
Let's do it. We're going to sing to the people for Christmas. Why not?
Love it. Love you.
All right, everybody.
Have a great one.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of CultureCast. If you have time, please be sure to scan the QR code on screen now. Leave us a review on Glassdoor. See you next time.